Hey everyone, it's been a while since I have covered PipeGen and I've made quite a few improvements over the last couple of years. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to go over the most up-to-date generator as it stands. So first things first, let's just create a simple pipe. There's many ways to create pipes, there's 3 different methods, but we'll go with the most default vanilla version. So I'll just get rid of this generator here. And what you can see is that we have an edge. This is not a curve, this is an edge. I have to emphasize that. And wherever we want a bend to occur in the pipe, we need to have a vertice there. It's also important that we never have vertices along straight areas of the pipe. Wherever you want to have a bend, you just have a vertice. So we could just extrude out like that. Let's get rid of these ones here. So let's create a geometry nodes modifier and assign PipeGen. And we immediately get a little pipe here. First things first, I'm just going to set the material, and then we'll set the flanges. So let's set this one here, and we can just copy and paste that. So these flanges, the fillet flanges, are spawned on either side of the bend. We can also spawn straight flanges, so ones that are spawned on the straight areas of the pipe. And we'll go into this in a little bit more detail on how to control this, but basically the longer the pipe, the more of those straight flanges get spawned, and like I said, we can dial that in with the scatter count and all that. And we can also set the end flanges, so where these connect into a wall or whatever. And then we have a very basic looking pipe, the most simple way that you can use PipeGen. And now we can just, dynamically extrude this and create a whole variety of, pipe networks very quickly. The other way to make pipes is with custom fillet and pipe objects. So if I just take these off, we just have our standard pipe here. But if I set the custom fillet object, which will be this one here, you can see that it will basically array that object as many times as necessary to fill that bend. We can also, if we wanted to dial in how many repetitions there are, we could, increase the scale of this. So it's very geometry dependent. And then we'll also set the custom pipe object here. And again, you can, dial in the frequency of how many times it scatters. It's basically trying its best to keep the ratio of the height along the length. So you can see that it does its best to fill it as many times as necessary. Another thing to just note is that the objects, all of these objects that you can assign, you want the orientation to be pointing in the Z. That's really important. All the flanges have their orientation in the Z. Another example, just to show you how powerful this generator is that we don't actually have to use cylindrical geometry or standard pipes. We can use any kind of pipe. I mean, I've just got like a random air vent sort of geometry here. We've just got the flange here, this is the fillet geometry, and this is the straight geometry. And we can just pretty much create any kind of pipe that we want. It's extremely powerful and customizable. And that's just what you don't see with other generators. They don't give you customizability, they lock you into a certain preset. And when you're working in film and game, you want to have as much control over these pipes as possible. And lastly, the other method of creating a pipe, just to show the versatility here, is using profiles. So what I have is these this is just a curve object. I've just got 2 curved circles which are lined up with the flanges here. Sorry, one second. As I was saying, yeah, we've got these curved circles which are lined up to these flanges, and what we can do is assign these under the custom pipe profile. So if I just take this away, we'll just take everything away for now. So this is just an edge, like previously. We can set our fillet flanges, our end flanges. Let's copy and paste that. And as soon as we set our custom pipe profile, which is this little circle here, it's no longer using the default pipe object, it's using that as a profile to extrude along. So those are the three main methods of creating pipes. Another question that you might ask is how do you create more complex junctions like these ones here? So what I have is two different edges here with the same kind of setup that we first started with. And then I have another edge here, just a single edge. And I've assigned a different end flange, so I'm assigning this one here. And we have full control over the rotations of these ends. We can even flip them, but we'll go over that a little bit later on. So if we come to our flange controls, I've set this to 90, so it joins up with this other pipe. So that's how you can kind of create more complex pipe systems in between each other. And one of the biggest updates that I've made recently, or over the last year, is having multiple edges work under the same object. So I can just duplicate pipes around. And this is all just one object. Previously we'd have to have an edge as its own object, but now it will, the modifier is smart enough to loop over every edge and generate the system automatically, which is very, very useful and just keeps things nice and clean. So let's go over some more controls here. We've got our fillet size, so we can dial up and down the size of the fillet, which will dynamically update the straight flanges as well. And another way to control the fillet size is with the fillet ratio. So just because of how this generator is built, when we have let me just extrude this down. When we have very large angles like this, the gap between the flanges can get very small. So if I bring this up like that, you don't really like the look of that, right? It's a bit too small, and that's not ideal. And this is just how the generator is built. So what I've included is a value so that anything which isn't 90 degrees, you can customize that size of the fillet. Same thing on this one here. So yeah, only use that control if you've got really large angles and you want to dial that in. But the latest update is using vertex groups. So perhaps you want to have complete control over every single bend here. So to use vertex groups, I'll just get rid of this for now, and it's going to completely break everything. So this is what it is by default. It's just a pipe system here. What you need to do is select all the vertices, Control G, assign a new group. So everything has a value of 1. So if we tick that on, it'll all break because we haven't set the name of the vertex group. So it'll look exactly the same as what the other pipe. Sorry, let's check that. That's why. This needs to be set to 1. So if I toggle that off and on, nothing will make, there'll be no differences because there's the fillet size is being multiplied by a value of 1, which is what all the vertices have assigned to them now. So if I select this vertex and I go to the vertex groups and I set this to 0.25, or we set this one to 0.5, you can see that we are able to customize the size of every single bend, which is extremely handy. Another way to control the fillet size is on the default pipe. So so this is not using any custom profiles or custom geometry. This is just the vanilla pipe, right? And on a lot of like PVC pipes, this section here is a little bit fatter than the straight sections. So as you can see, this flange kind of like flares out to something a bit bigger. So if we wanted to fill that gap and make this a bit wider, what we can use is the fillet radius. So by default, it looks like that, and you can see there's a gap there. We can dial that up to fill that. And that control will only work on the default pipe. So this is a big problem for a lot of people that I find. It's a common issue that people keep running into, is that they keep trying to make pipes which are just too sharp. Like, this is the bend size, and they're trying to push it too far. Like, that bend is just overlapping into the other bend, right? And that's just going to break everything. You can't do that. So you have a few options on how to bypass this, right? So what you can do is you can either keep a straight section here, just something, or you can bring them really close together. And I'll just change the setting back to 0 for now. So we're actually using the flange overlap threshold. So I'll set this to 0. And as soon as it overlaps, it'll break everything, right? But if we just move it just off, so they're almost overlapping, we can dial up this control here. 0.008 in this particular case works, and it will dissolve that flange in the middle. So if you do want to have a sharp corner like this, you can use that setting to dial it in, but just be aware you cannot push it any further than that, otherwise everything will break. And another thing to be aware of is that what can also break your pipes is if your flanges, your offset of your flanges is too far this way, so it's overlapping the bend. So if we grab our flange offset value and we push that and we do it all the way back, see, it breaks. Because what happens is where that, I'll just hide the flanges for a second using the hide flange setting, this edge where it's being spawned is overlapping on this edge, and it will break everything. So if you have a really massive pipe, then you may want to offset this edge a little bit further away to give it a bit more buffer room so it doesn't break. Something like that. Cool, we spoke earlier about the straight flange control by adding in a straight flange up here. What we can do is we can actually randomize these. So if I just set this back to 0, you can see that there's a lot of repetition going on here, and it just doesn't look very good. Pipes aren't that repetitive a lot of the time. So what we can do is dial in the straight flange cull, and this will randomly delete some of those flanges just to get some randomization. And you don't need to use these like circular flanges. You may have some sort of valve system or something, but it just adds a bit of control and randomization just to break up the straight lines. All right, let's just go over some of the more boring, more self-explanatory settings that we haven't covered already. So we have flip ends, we can flip these. So if you've got the orientation incorrect or whatever, and you want to flip it, you can do so. And you can also flip the bend flanges as well. Depending on your design, that might come in handy. Now, we've also just done the hide flanges earlier. This is a really important setting, realize instances. So if I just create an empty here, and I mirror this across, if I tick off realize instances, it won't mirror these objects because these are instances. If you want to keep it procedural and use mirror modifiers, you need to ensure that realize instances is on. Another reason why you want to have realize instances on is if I just remove this, well, we can leave it on for now, but if I apply this modifier, apply, you can see that our flanges disappear. And for the same reasons why they disappear on the mirror, they're just instances, they're not real geometry. So we need to realize instances and then apply our modifier. And now we have this as true geometry. So we'll just get rid of this modifier for now. We can also reverse curve. It'll, like, if you have a different flange on this end than this end, you can flip the curve and it will just, reverse everything. Pretty self-explanatory. An important setting here is the curve twist, so we can twist the curve, and this will work on all 3 different types of pipes that you can make using PipeGen. Now we've been over the Vertex group settings. Fillet resolution, this will dial in, might need to select this first. This will dial in the resolution of your fillets here. And this can also work for your, this one here. This will also work on custom profile pipes as well. So we can dial in the fillet resolution. Fillet size, we've been over that. Fillet ratio, done that. Fillet radius, we've done that. Custom pipe merge threshold. Okay, so this is a new one. So this is a custom pipe section of PipeGen, right? Sometimes you want to merge it and sometimes you don't. Like for example, on this one, I don't really want to merge these vertices here because this is kind of like its own individual chunk of the pipe. And it'll probably create non-manifold geometry on this particular array. But on this one, since it's like an open edge, if I just show face orientations, it's an open edge, you'll probably want to merge these edges here. And this is where custom pipe merge threshold comes in. If I dial this right up, you can see what's happening. It's merging everything. So just to get those open edges, you might just want to give it like a really small value just to make sure that you're welding all of these pieces together. Cool. We also have our flange scale. Oh, sorry, let's go over some other settings here. We missed them. The pipe controls. So we have unlink and link pipe radius. So if I increase the pipe radius, you can see that the flanges also increase with the size of the pipe. And that's really useful just so you don't have to constantly change the pipe, change the flange, change the pipe, change the flange. But if you, for whatever reason, wanted to keep this unlinked, you can do so. So the pipe is completely individual from the flange scale. So let's just leave that on for now. Pipe resolution, that's just obviously controlling the radial segments of the pipe, and that applies also to custom profile pipes as well. As you can see. And I've gotten confused as to which one I've done already, but the custom fillet merge and custom pipe merge, these 2 settings are the same thing, like what we discussed with this, with these 2 pipes here about merging. These are basically the same thing. This will just merge, the custom fillet merge will merge this, and the custom pipe will merge these. Losing track with all these settings, there's a lot of them. All right, let's continue on. We've got our flange scale here, so we can control the flanges. And this is an interesting setting because it also controls the profile, the custom profile scale as well. So if we dial this up on a custom profile pipe, it'll increase the size of that pipe. So it's a little bit of a tricky setting. It works for the standard pipe, and it also works for the custom profile pipe as well. Well, it also works for the custom geometry as well. I should note it'll also work here. But just the fact that on custom profile pipes it scales up the entire thing and not just the flange. Just be aware of that. And we've been over the rotations of the flanges, self-explanatory. Fillet flange offset, we've been through that. That's just offsetting these things. Straight flange spacing, we've been through that. I'll just dial this in, but you can increase or decrease the amount of straight flanges. And we've been through the cull, the flange overlap threshold we've been through. Great, so that pretty much covers the pipe settings themselves. We've got some more settings here. We've considered material. We can also flip the pipe normals, and I find that this flip pipe normals is really useful for the custom pipe profile sort of pipes, because when you're extruding these curves, sometimes Blender can get a bit confused about what is the inside and outside faces. So if your pipe is coming out red, it means that your faces are flipped, and you just need to come into the pipe and you can flip the normals. Shade smooth, depending if you want to do like game art or whatever, low poly stuff, you can do that. And lastly, we have generate UVs. So what I will do is we just set that here. We'll just add a checkerboard onto this. Yep, so we've added a checkerboard, and we'll need to enable generate UVs. And you can see that we're actually getting automatic UV generation on this pipe. Now just keep in mind that this can slow things down quite a lot, especially if you have realize instances turned on and UVs. It means there's no instances and you're generating UVs. It can get a bit slow, so if you want to keep your scene fast, keep realize instances off and generate UVs off as well. Another thing to take note of is that it's a good idea that when you're collapsing the network down into true geometry and not just procedural stuff, just select all the faces of your flanges so it's easily selectable afterwards, and also ensure that the UV map set here, so this one here has a UV map called UV map, which is the Blender standard name, and by default we want to make sure that the flange UV map is the same as what's been generated on the pipe. Otherwise, when you collapse the network down, you're going to get two different UV maps, and it's just a little bit of a pain to merge the two together. You just want to have one uniform UV map between the flanges and the pipe, right? So, and also I should note, like, UVs on pipes are extremely important, because if you've done UVs on like an oil tanker and you've got thousands of pipes, imagine having to go and like unwrap every single pipe. It would be an absolute nightmare, right? So this is a lifesaver. So yeah, we've covered the name. We want to make sure that's the same as the flange. Lastly, what we also have here is we can change the UV seam. So you can see that there's a seam being generated down here. And let's say this is a really hero shot. This is our camera angle, whatever. And we've got a seam running there. We don't want that. So what we can actually do is we can actually shift the seam to a better location. So now we don't see the seam here. So just nice to have that control. So with that said, let's collapse this down. Control A, or you can just come up here and apply the modifier. Actually, sorry, I need to realize instances. Apply. And we'll just crack open a UV editor here. And there you go. Because we selected the flanges before, we can easily just move them off to the side, and we've got all of our UVs ready to go. I also wanted to mention that PipeGen will come with this complete flange kit with your purchase. All of the models are really high quality, clean, sub-D topology, and everything has UVs as well. I just wanted to include something so that users could just get right into making pipes without having to worry about making this kind of geometry. But feel free to put together your own kits to customize your own pipes. And that pretty much summarizes PipeGen in a nutshell. Hopefully everyone can see that this is a really versatile and useful tool. it's not just a pipe generator. You can make all sorts of things, just like I showed you before, railings, you name it. So if you do see the value in this tool, you can pick it up on my Blender Market and my Gumroad page with the links in the description below. All right, thanks everyone.